This is Damon Brown. You're watching Bring Your Worth TV. Shout out to all of y'all. I'm entrepreneurial coach Damon Brown. I'm here to help you as a side hustler, a solopreneur, otherwise a non-traditional entrepreneur. If you're doing things differently, if you're got little kids at home and you're side hustling or creating businesses as I have over the past 10 plus years, get the words out of my mouth, or if you're realizing that the corporate or this traditional environment isn't working for you, or if you're trying to do something different in our ever-changing world, you are at the right place. Bring Your Worth TV comes live, or I'm coming live to Bring Your Worth TV, 1:11 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, Vegas time. I appreciate all y'all. And you can check out my latest book, The Complete Bring Your Worth Collection, my 27th book. It's actually almost like a best of a lot of the business books that I've done that you guys have supported, included The Bite-Sized Entrepreneur, which y'all made a bestseller. Thank you. That whole trilogy, as well as Bring Your Worth, name of the book, as well as my personal favorite, Built From Now, How to Know Your Power, See Your Abundance, and Nourish the World. Appreciate y'all. Love y'all. And thank you for coming through. Today, we're going to talk about how to find peace this year. Um, a lot going on. I feel like I repeat myself sometimes. Let me get cozy in my chair. But like I repeat myself sometimes because um, it's always interesting times. And I've been around long enough. And if you've been around long enough, you understand too. It's always interesting times. We talk about unprecedented all the time. And I'm getting tired of hearing it, to be honest. I'm gonna stop using that word because there actually is a precedence for a lot of things that are happening in the world and beyond, internally and externally, as well as there being a method to the madness. And if we dig deep and understand ourselves more, then maybe we'll be understand what direction the world is going in, why it's going in that direction, and what part we play in it, whether it's for good or for ill. And that's a big part of the discussion. If you already subscribe, then you already know where this is going to go. JoinDamon.me. It's a newsletter that comes out free for y'all to the community every Wednesday at 5:55 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, Vegas time. Been doing it for a couple decades now. It's been a long time. It's been a very long time. I appreciate all the love and support and being able to connect with y'all in the different mediums. So it's free for y'all. Just go to joindamon.me. And today's newsletter, I talked about peace is not a word to play, along with actually, it's a gift of Tupac before his untimely death quite a few years ago. And peace is not a word to play was a term that we use way back in the day. In fact, there's a hip hop song that's named after that from a group called The Main Source. And peace is not a word to play. It's basically saying, look, you can throw the peace sign, as was popular when I was much younger. You can throw out the peace sign and all those things, but are you actually representing the peace that the peace sign represents? Are you doing it because everyone's saying peace? You used to say peace when you say goodbye, right? Peace out, whatever. But then you might have ill will towards your brother and sister. You might be making decisions that aren't good for your family. What kind of peace is that? Are you creating peace or are you just saying peace? That's what that means. Peace is not a word to play. In today's newsletter, I talk about how there's two different types of peace. There's the internal peace and there's the external peace. The external peace is creating an environment, whether aggressively or passive aggressively, creating an environment where you are controlling as much as possible. So if people get out of line, if something doesn't look in a certain way, and it doesn't work with you, something feels off, then you try to change it. There's beauty in that kind of action, right? Me reaching out to y'all and having our community, that's my way of trying to change the world. There's nothing wrong with that. The challenge comes in that, and when the desire for external peace outweighs or overshadows any type of internal peace we have. When I think of internal peace, I think of a tree and it being deeply rooted. Trees, this might be true. I believe it's scientifically true, where when trees grow, and we see them, of course, above ground. Their roots are a mirror of that. Not exact mirror, but in other words, if you see a 10 or 20-foot oak tree, let's say a 20-foot oak tree, that means it has 20 feet of roots underneath. It equals as above, so below, right? If you know, you know. And so with that mirror imaging, if we're actually going to have a deeper sense of peace, internal peace, something that's inside of us, then it has to begin with us. That's finding ways to ground ourselves. That's showing up, as they say, as the change that we want to see in the world. It's making decisions that are reflective of what we want to see, not being angry, the external part, or frustrated because the world isn't giving us peace. I'm going to be blunt. The world's not going to give you peace. It's not outside. The call's coming from inside the house. So if you don't have your affairs in order, not in the dramatic way, but if you don't have your affairs in order, if you don't have your house in order, if you're not grounded in who you are, what you represent, and what you are going to tolerate and accept, then it's easy to be out in the wind. Sometimes we look at the external piece as that being the peace on earth that a lot of us talk about during Christmas time. We look at it as that. We're rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic, right? As they would say. We're telling everyone to act a certain way or show up a certain way because that makes us uncomfortable. I think the truth about peace is that it makes you uncomfortable because it triggers something inside of you that's lacking or isn't grounded. That's why there's certain folks that can go into any environment and they're going to be exactly who they are in any environment. That comes from an inner peace and inner knowing. So what we're talking about today are ways where you can build and go deeper into the inner knowing. Again, I get a little bit deeper into it in today's newsletter. Again, feel free to join our community. Um, but I think that's really the key thing, particularly since we're at a time of war. There's quite a few things going on as we're talking right now, and it's almost like the environment is going to slowly change based on our own personal intentions. If all of us are trees, then a tree that finds peace is going to affect and be connected roots wise to the trees next to it. And maybe they'll find their own sense of balance. That doesn't mean that you don't advocate for other people. That doesn't mean that you aren't out there marching or contributing in some way to making it a better world. What it is that if you're not feeling peace within yourself, you're not going to find it outside. That is a lost cause. You will find the peace within. And hopefully, some of the tools and books and so forth and resources that we talk about today, as well as the conversation, feel free to jump in the chat, will help all of us get a little bit closer to peace of mind. So, if you want peace this year, peace is not a word to play. You got to start with yourself. There's so many conflicts that we have with other people. It's really our stuff. Say the quiet part out loud, right? When it comes to finding peace this year, you need to make space, make room to rebuild, make room to rebuild. I've been through a lot of transitions over the past, I'd say, gosh, 2, 3, 4 years. I guess a lot of us have. Again, if you're watching this live, we're only a few years past the crescendo of the pandemic. So yeah, a lot of us have changed a lot of things. I'm glad we're all in community because I sure needed y'all over the last few years for sure. But particularly over the last few years, I've gone through very, very personal change in getting older and family structure and where I live, just all these little details, even as far as why I do what I do and why I hang out with y'all. That's hopefully happening with you, to you, but hopefully with you within the context of the stuff that you're doing. Um, That should happen semi-regularly. I There's very few people that I know who have had the exact same life throughout their life. Again, particularly when I'm middle aged, particularly when you get to my age, right? If there's going to be these transitions, you need to give space to build room to rebuild. I was just talking to a relative of mine, love you, and I was explaining to them how this past year, last year, was me essentially making room, tilling the soil. I think was a term I used, right? Me and my kids just started planning all kinds of gardening stuff. If you join the newsletter, you already know that because I've written about gardening a couple times. Nothing major, It's not like I have a plot of land, but here and there, peppers and basil and stuff like that. And there's a certain point where you have to till the soil, where you need to turn it. It's not for growth. It's more to, I guess, stimulate things. You're not planting seeds because the till would kind of ruin the seeds, I'd imagine. I'm not a super green thumb, so you can correct me in the comments. But you're going to be tilling. That's what build room to rebuild means. If you want to have a better life, better career, whatever aspect you're looking at, and or you're ready for this period of time of your life to be done. You're ready to move on to the next chapter. I know how you feel. Like I said, a lot of transition the last few years. If you're feeling that, there needs to be a gap in between. It's required. If you don't build a gap now, then whatever hasn't been dealt with, that soil that hasn't been tilled, will come back even stronger later. What I found, at least with my life, is that there often will be a natural gap that happens. I have moved recently over the last couple of years. And so there's that gap of you packing your stuff, you getting to the new place you're going to live, and you unpacking. That is a ritual. That is a process. That's a natural part of the process. Imagine if you didn't unpack anything and you just threw the stuff in the new place. It's not just impractical, right? But you also miss the part of the ritual. There's supposed to be a messy, liminal, gooey gap in there. As my friend Jenny Blake put it, or actually I think it was one of her colleagues put it on her podcast. Shout out to Jenny Blake. Has a great book called Pivot that you guys should check out. She talks about the process of the chrysalis, which is that gap between a caterpillar and a butterfly. That that messy middle, as we talk about in transition, that messy middle is messy. If we're not giving space for that messy middle, then it's going to be hard to create and find peace in our next step. So you might be ready to move on to the next thing, or you might be into this new thing and it doesn't quite feel right. That might be because you haven't given room to rebuild. So that means maybe if you can, sleeping a little bit later. That might mean meditating. That might mean turning your phone off for a half hour a day so you have quiet. It means allowing yourself to sit in that middle. I'm in kind of a middle right now. So, if you're going through that, that's part of the game. And there's not much you can do about it. And more importantly, there's not much you should do about it. In those periods of time where I've lived all across the country, been through a lot of transitions in my life, maybe more than the average person, I learned as I got older that if life didn't give me a buffer, then I would make one. So there will be periods of time where I was going through a lot of personal stuff or whatever, and I would push my deadlines. My background is journalism. So it's like I would push my deadlines and be like, hey, can I get, oh, you want me to turn it in on Friday? Is it okay if I get it to you on Monday? Is that still going to work? Oh, yeah. Okay, great. So now I've given myself a buffer. So I might be working really hard to get it to Friday, but now I have Monday. Really simple gems like that, they make a huge difference because when you're in the messy middle, when you're trying to make room to rebuild, That those extra minutes, those extra moments of quiet and peace, they are priceless, and you need them in that period of time more than ever. So what you want to do is build room to rebuild. If you want more peace, you got to give space for your transitions. Otherwise, you're just rushing to the next thing. Like, you ever have a period of time where you just turn your phone off, or you're out of signal, or your email isn't working? Even if you're on social media, I know it's a meta thing, but even if you're on social media and there'll be a big outage, like Google or AWS, which is Amazon, or the Facebook platform, which is Meta and all that stuff. And you'll see all these comments about people saying, "Oh yeah, I actually get a break from work, or I can actually breathe and all that." Why don't you build that in yourself, particularly if you run your own business? Those of us that are entrepreneurs, we're running a high wire act. We got to make sure that we give ourselves time to breathe. That's one of the strong ways to get peace. Calm, I'm a big fan of it. It's one of my favorite apps. And one of the things that Calm does is it gives you different, what do you call them? They're not quite audiobooks; they're a lot shorter, but like narrations and things like that. And narrations all the way to The Sound of Rain. As I mentioned in previous episodes, I'm from Atlantic City, so I love the sound of water. So it could be rain or stuff like that. All that kind of setup, it's all in there, all inclusive. I love the Calm app. It's not even an affiliate thing, so I'm not even getting anything out of this other than giving it to you guys. My kids love Calm too, so half the time they'll ask me to go and put on one of the Calm things before they go to sleep and stuff like that. So there's narration, there's stuff for kids, there's stuff for adults like you and I, and there's kind of like that mood sound or music, kind of light ASMR, if you know what I'm talking about. This actually gives you, as of us hanging out right now, it gives you 30 days for free. It's on me. Go and check it out. Again, it's one of my favorite apps. This is something that you could use to help get you into that mindset. I meditate every day, almost every day. I meditate most days, we'll put it like that. I go for long walks and all those different things. And those are ways that I can get centered. If you don't have a practice or you're not sure exactly how to center yourself, Calm will be a great place to start. So shout out to Calm. Again, love the app, and I'm glad that I can share it with you guys. So with y'all, is there a particular thing that you might be going through or a particular way that you deal with transition? I'm really curious about that as far as how each of us deals with the chaos of normal life. And within that chaos, are you buffering in time to actually digest? I guess that's the word I'm looking for. Give yourself time and energy to digest what's happening. I think it's a really important part of the process. Jump in the comments if you have any feedback with that. I'm entrepreneurial coach Damon Brown. I'm here to help you as a side hustler, solopreneur, otherwise a non-traditional entrepreneur. This is Bring Your Worth TV, and we're talking about how to find peace this year. Key component of it, as far as finding peace this year, is to focus on consistency over perfection. Consistency over perfection. This is episode 443. Um, when I launched the show, um, yeah, my youngest hadn't even started school yet. Now both my boys are they're in fourth grade and seventh grade, right? The amount of change from the pandemic and the virtual schooling, right? So I have a little bit of trauma from that, but we survived. Hey, we're here. They seem fully functional. From that to personal changes to career changes to even my businesses have evolved quite a bit. But in the past 5 years, as of this recording, I've hung out with y'all regularly enough to the point where we're up to episode 443. Not one episode has been perfect. You can go through the catalog. Mistakes, editing mistakes, slipping over my tongue. You might see one of my kids' afros running under here when they're much younger, and they wanted a hug from daddy, like that kind of thing. But that's all part of the game. Consistency is better than perfection. If I was aiming for perfection, there would be no show. We would not be hanging out. We wouldn't be hanging out. I found that perfection or aiming for perfection, you don't have to be a perfectionist per se, but aiming for perfection will keep you stuck. There's a major project that I'm working on right now that I'll be announcing to you guys really soon. It could have came out a lot earlier. I was waiting for this moment for the stars to align. Shout out to the astronomist and the astrologists out there. I was waiting for the stars to align. And it's like, Damon, you have to align. Forget the stars. You have to align. Same for you. Sometimes we lack peace or we feel confused because there's something that we know we ought to be doing, but we're coming up with reasons why it's not the right time. I'm a big proponent of timing. I love timing, as I say in my book Built from Now, which is within the Complete Bring Your Worth collection. I say in my book, one of the chapters is about timing, and I talk about how I'm not about making things happen, but about finding the right time and then getting in there. There's a dark side to that because sometimes it's never the right time, and sometimes it actually the time is fine, but it's not perfect. As I've talked about in the past, how many degrees do you need to have? How many friends do you need to talk to tell you it's a good idea you should go forward? How much does life need to convince you to show up as yourself, as your best self? Again, it's a chaotic time, particularly chaotic time. I'm not going to use the word I talked about at the beginning of the episode, but it is a very intense time. So, are you going to keep holding back that art, that creativity, that nonprofit, that contribution? Are you going to keep holding on to it until it's quote the right time, or are you going to consistently show up as again in the case with me where I keep showing up for you guys? Hair long, hair short, kids in the background, total silence. Lighting too dark, mic broken, mic great, lighting great. Doesn't matter. What matters is that you keep showing up. So many of us do not have peace right now, inner peace, as we talked about at the very top of the show, the internal peace, because we know there's something we're supposed to be doing and we're not doing it. There's guilt and shame that comes with that. I'm a creative. You got my sympathy. And at a certain point, you got to let it go. And I don't mean stop doing the project. I mean let it go into the world because the rest of us are waiting. And sometimes we lack peace because we know that the world is waiting. And that prospect scares us. To paraphrase, I believe it was Stephen Pressfield. Shout out to Stephen. I hope you're doing wonderful. To paraphrase him, we're often not afraid of failure, we're afraid of success. Because failure can pattern match my language, that can pattern match how we feel about ourselves, that we're not powerful. But if we know the book that we take out, or take out, what do you call it? Publish, right? If we know that the book that we publish, that um, the live show that we do, the podcast that we appear on, the job that we take, the job that we quit, the thing that we say, if we know that's going to impact the world in this big way, then we have to face that we have that much power. That's why we get caught up in perfectionism, or at least trying to have things be perfect. I feel like there's a difference. That's why we're afraid to get stuff out there. Again, to paraphrase Stephen Pressfield, it's not because of failure. You don't have a fear of failure. You're afraid of recognizing how powerful you are, and you might not feel like you can handle that power. You might not feel like you deserve that power. When we show up consistently on off days, on great days, on fantastic moments and embarrassing moments, I have my share of both. You're not alone. Then it shows the world, maybe even if you're on that level, the universe that we're prepared to embrace that power. And frankly, we all have that power. Fantastic book to think about this is No Mud, No Lotus by Thich Nhat Hanh. I think I have a physical book around here somewhere. Oh, I sure do. Ha ha. Most of my books are physical, believe it or not, even though I'm a tech guy. Most of them are physical. But my kids love to read, bless their hearts. I'm so glad they love to read. So they're still in my books. I got, books in my car when I went in car loop and stuff. So my books are all over the place. But glad it was on the shelf. No Mud, No Lotus, very short book by Thich Nhat Hanh. Rest in peace to him. He died about 3, 4 years ago. I did a video about it. You can look at it at bringyourworth.tv and just do a search on it. And his name is Thich Nhat Hanh. You can see it there. Fantastic book. All the links are below, by the way. And if you use the QR code, you can buy it directly from my bookstore over there. So you can go and check it out. Fantastic book. It talks about how if there's no mud, then there's no lotus. And from, I believe, I want to say Vietnam, you have the lotus plants, which are connected to being in the lotus position. If you've heard about that, or in yoga, or even meditation, if you see someone meditating, with their fingers up and all that, that's the lotus position. They're with their. I can't do it on the. I'm on a stool right now. With their, you know what I'm trying to say. You can look it up. You can Google it. I don't know why I'm describing it so detailed, but the lotus plant, which is one of those most beautiful plants in the freaking world. Again, you can Google that and look it up. It's created out of mud. And so this guy, who's probably, he might have been pushing 100. Number one, Martin Luther King Jr. came to him, made a pilgrimage to Thich Nhat Hanh to learn more about nonviolent resistance. This is like right before the civil rights movement really took off for African Americans here in America. So he's the OG to the OG, right? So that's one. Second of all, the reason why Dr. King went to him was because of the stuff that was going on in Tibet and in Vietnam and other areas that he was exposed to. The thing is that without the tension, without the conflict, without the hard times, then you're not going to have that rigor. You're not going to get opportunity to develop that inner stillness. I'm not crazy about conflict, but people that know me know I don't have a problem with conflict either. Part of the reason why I don't have a problem with it is because that facilitates growth. Change is conflict. Being in a relationship, romantically or otherwise, is conflict because there are two different interests, at least two different interests. Who you're going to be to make an impact on the world might have to be a little bit different than the person you are now. Therefore, there needs to be some type of conflict, some type of change that happens for you to truly be at the place where you can contribute to the world on the level that you potentially can. That's not saying you can't contribute now, but if you're going through some stuff, maybe it's helping you get to that next level. That's all I got to say about that. I can opine about that for another hour, but I am not. I will spare you guys. But this book is an example of that, and he talks about some of the wartime things that he went through, some of the stuff he saw. You can see a little picture of him there. He's a he was a short monk, and one of my favorite people to read. Rest in peace to him. Fantastic book. He has a few other books, but this is the one. This is the one. So I would recommend that one. What are the areas in your own life where you are actually focused more on trying to make it right versus trying to show up? Let me know in the comments. I'm really curious, and we can kind of have a conversation about it. Because I think that's the challenge that a lot of us that are in creative fields, a lot of us that have our own agency and don't have a boss, you know, we're working for ourselves and we're the worst boss in the world, right? That's part of the game. You're watching Bring Your Worth TV. I'm entrepreneurial coach Damon Brown, here to help you as a side hustler, solopreneur, otherwise a non-traditional entrepreneur. Bring Your Worth TV. You can subscribe for free. All the links are below. If you're on Twitch or all the other platforms, you can subscribe there too. Follow me, what have you. And you can watch it on Wednesdays live at 1:11 p.m. Same time, Vegas time. I do, speaking of balance and peace, I do take breaks and stuff like that. So I'm looking forward to having some best ofs or even reruns, which I noticed that some of the younger generations do not know what a rerun is. And I was like, oh man, you don't, because you grew up with TV on YouTube. But it's when an episode plays again, just to make it clear. And so so there might be some reruns or some replay episodes in the future too, because I will be doing some traveling and also, of course, spending time with the aforementioned family. All right, I'm cracking myself up today. If you want more peace this year, change yourself to change their environment. Change yourself to change their environment. Hear me out. You ever been in a situation where someone is getting on your last nerve? I was recently in that situation, so don't be shy, right? One of two things happens. Actually, three. One, the person stops doing whatever's getting on your nerves. The second thing is you have a conflict or a conversation, even if it's just a nice thing, it's still a conflict because you have two different interests. You say, hey, stop doing that. And the third one is that you make peace with that. Only one of those things you actually have agency over. That's the last thing. That doesn't mean that when you're in a situation where things can be better, that you don't say anything. What that means is that you want to be careful as far as how much you want to depend on the outside environment for your particular inner peace. If there's a way that you can be more grounded, your intention should be to max that out completely. Have I use everything within my control? My there's a term for it, locus. My locus of control. It's maxed out. I'm not stressed about it, but I've done everything I could about it. That's when it becomes a discussion. That's when it becomes a true conflict. You can get up and leave the room. You can do something else and save the big fight for another day. You can use it for opportunity for learning and growth. You can reflect on it, have a higher level of self awareness, or could get a higher level of self awareness and say, oh, yeah, let me pause on this. Why is this getting on my nerves? There's opportunity in the discomfort. That's what I'm trying to say. So when you're changing yourself, then you actually have the opportunity to make the environment better because you are part of the environment. One of the telltale signs is when you're in a situation in a group setting, or it could be family dynamics, could be work dynamics, whatever, friends, and you swear everybody's tripping, everybody's on some other stuff, everyone's not acting as their best. When you're talking about it in past tense, it's already happened. Are you saying, hey, all my friends are tripping? Or are you saying, wow, all of us are tripping and I was in a mood? Because the first one is saying they got some issues going on. My family was acting like this. My friends were acting like this. My work environment was acting like this. Versus saying, wow, how am I contributing to these dynamics? What is my piece of it? That's what I'm getting at. As we talked about at the top of the episode, if you look at yourself as a tree and you're tightly and well rooted, then you're not going to be swayed as much. You'll have that grounding, and then you'll recognize and even contribute to the greater environment. Because without the individual trees, there is no forest. When you go into an environment, or you're in a particular like a relationship dynamic or friendship dynamic or whatever, you are contributing to the mass. If you have a problem with it, you are part of that. Whether that's fair or not, I'm not here to say. I'm just saying what it is. So if you can change yourself, if you can evolve, not to get smaller. but to get stronger. Then you have the opportunity to impact the environment. And maybe it's not the right environment for you. You have the choice to leave. You have the choice to go to a different environment. You have the choice to end things. That is always your choice. The fact is that 99% of the time we have that prerogative. There's certain situations where we're just stuck there, and my sympathy and empathy to you. But most of the time, we got some kind of agency. And working within that agency, once we embrace that, then we will exhaust all our options. And maybe it's just not the place we're supposed to be. And depending on your belief system or how you think life works, then maybe life's trying to get you to someplace else. Maybe your job isn't to change the environment. Maybe your job is to go to a new one. Food for thought. When we're talking about getting along with people, we got to talk about one of the most popular episodes on the show. This is a hot topic. For me, that's why I did the video. Look, this is episode 27. This is 420 episodes ago. Oh my gosh. One of the first episodes. Thank you all that have been riding with me this whole time. As of this recording, as we're hanging out, this is like almost 5 years ago. And it looks a little different. Forgive me in advance because the lighting isn't quite there. You can tell the show just started. It's just episode 27. But the content and the discussion is there. And I just see in the comments, we were talking. Brene Brown's secret to success with people you don't like. Here's a fact. You're gonna have to interact with people you don't like. That's just how it works. Even when you're a kid, maybe especially when you're a kid, because you don't have as much agency as far as where you live and the people you interact with. You don't have as much agency. So shout out to my kids as well as the kids around the world. I respect that you don't have as much agency as you would like, and you have my empathy and sympathy. Hopefully, we can treat kids better in the future. My whole point is that you're going to be interacting, no matter what level you're at, with people that you don't like. The question is, how do you do it while keeping yourself, your ethics, your ideas intact? Not as easy as it sounds, but in this, I think it's a 6 minute video, we talk about it. And it's one particular quote from Brene Brown that always nails it for me. And I'm so glad that it has really rooted with you guys too. Obviously, again, it's one of the most popular episodes that I've ever done. Be sure and check it out. Again, it's 5 6 minutes. If you're watching on TV or I watch YouTube all the time on TV, as my boys do, or if you're or any other platform, Twitch or what have you, and you happen to have your phone handy, you can use the QR code right there, and it'll go straight to the video after we finish talking, of course. But you always press rewind. There you go. Back with the old terminology. I grew up on VCRs. We're gonna call it rewind. Also, all the links are below, and of course, you go to bringyourworth.tv and just look up the title and do that if that's better for you guys. I'm gonna stop babbling. Again, like I said, I'm cracking myself up today. What were those times where you tried to change the environment and you realized you had to change yourself? The amount of times I went through that are a lot. We'll just leave it a lot. We'll just say a lot. It's been a lot. Yeah, let us know in the comments. Yeah, and the reverse of that, what were the times where you wanted to change your environment, you changed yourself, and the environment changed? That's even more powerful. Nothing like it in the world. I'm entrepreneurial coach David Brown, here to help you as a side hustler, solopreneur, otherwise a not traditional entrepreneur. It's Bring Your Worth TV, live Wednesdays at 1:11 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, Vegas time. Shout, give a shout in the comments if there's some situations you've been in that help you realize how much agency you actually had. All right. When it comes to finding peace this year, you have to create buffer in your life. Create buffer in your life. I think that the key part of this is actually making room to grow. We talked about this a little bit earlier in the episode, but I think it's really important to kind of dig deeper into this. When it comes to our daily lives. And again, I got two kids in fourth grade and in seventh grade. Um, I run a few different businesses, got family life, beyond my kids and friends. And, I got to take care of Damon too, all that stuff. As things kind of, and of course, the normal thing like bills and things. So as those things pile up, excuse me, it's really important to have a buffer for those different parts of your life. I'll give a really simple example. I know folks who will see a gap in their schedule, maybe like 45 minutes, and schedule something in there right there. It's not because they're on deadline. It might even be a weekend or even during vacation, but they're going to cram it in there for the sake of so-called efficiency. I'm saying so-called because we have different reasons for that, right? But so-called efficiency, it could be because there's guilt and or shame over resting, and so they can't have a dull moment. There's been so many social media discussions that are happening right now, again, as we're talking live right now, about kids who would be resting or playing around or just daydreaming. And then they'll hear their parents or their guardians come to the door after whatever, and they feel like they have to do something to make themselves look busy. That's heartbreaking to me. And with a couple relatives, I can relate to that, to be honest. But that's not an uncommon occurrence. We take that energy with us from childhood, from experiences, from culture. I don't mean like race culture or anything like that. I mean more like just the culture of the families and the environments that we're in. Back to environment, like we were talking about earlier in the episode. But so many folks that I know that have that habit of cramming in their schedule, they don't even realize they're doing it. They're on autopilot. It just is. It just is. It's kind of like, and it took me a while to get better at this, with the work that we do as independents. And as I talked about in a previous episode a couple weeks ago, I think it was episode 441, where I was talking about creating financial goals and better financial freedom and more profit in the new year. Like episode 441. And I was talking about how, as independents, as entrepreneurs, what have you, we tend to get really big checks, four figure, five figure. Some of us are lucky to get six figure, like big checks. But then that check is meant to last for 2 years. If you get $100,000, you're living in a major city and it's supposed to last you 2 years. And you got kids and a mortgage and a spouse or whatever. Suddenly, right? And that's before taxes. That 100,000 is really probably closer to 70. So then you're doing 35,000 a year, and then you got mouths to feed, and this project is taking up your whole thing, but that's the only money you got. So you might be getting a six-figure payday, right? I get into it in the episode again, episode 441. So I digress. But that's kind of the energy. It took me a while, and I'm still creating better habits. I talked about in the episode. When you get that check, it's like number one, you got bills to pay, right? Stuff to do depending on your situation. But then also you have a gap. And you might have some in savings and stuff like that, and of course you take care of your taxes, but it's tempting to say, oh, there's a gap there. Oh, well, that means I have this amount of money. I can do this. The same thing happens with our time. The same thing happens, I think, with just a lot of things. Just us trying to cram everything in there. It's kind of like going on a first date and you're trying to learn every single thing about the person. Yeah, and I could be guilty as charged. So as many of us have been. You know what I mean? And it's like, well, if you plan on dating this person for a while, or, you're in that relationship mode, not hookup mode, but in the relationship mode, you might not want to do the 200 million questions just yet. But that's, we tend to want to get to the point. We tend to want to get everything out of everything and just squeeze the lemon or the lime until there's not a drop left. That is, I think, a very strong way of not having peace. Number one, it comes from a scarcity mindset because if I don't do this now, if I don't ask this now, if I don't spend this money now, then I'm never going to get a chance again. So that's one. And I've done whole episodes about scarcity mindset. Maybe I'll do another one this upcoming year since we haven't talked about it in a while. Shout out to Carol Dweck with her book Mindset, which talks about the scarcity mindset. So it could be that. It could be from a place of um, I need to get in here and make this move. Otherwise, the opportunity is going to close. What I found is that there's so few things like that. That's kind of part of the game. There's no difference between those things. Sorry, eating healthy. I actually had a seed in my mouth. But you know what I mean? There's that kind of intensity with that. And if you actually take a breath and allow that space, that buffer between one thing to the next, from this question to that question, from this chore to that chore, from this duty to that duty, from this relationship to that relationship. If you actually allow a little bit of a buffer, then that can give you the energy that you need back. I've heard horror stories of folks in the corporate environment and more structured environments, even startups. What am I talking about? Even in startups, which I know the startup world more than the corporate world. And folks have been so busy. They got meetings back to back to back to back to back to back to back. I mean, all day, where they'll start a meeting and then they'll be like, hey, give me a sec. I need to run to the bathroom. So they need to cut meetings off or leave the person sitting there or on Zoom, whatever, for 2 minutes so they can go to the bathroom because there's no buffer. That contributes to us not having that peace. If we can work on finding more and creating more buffers in our life, taking that pause and saying, can I take 15 minutes between this and that and just sit there with a cup of coffee or whatever? I got my coffee right here, but sit there with a cup of coffee or whatever. Can I do that? Am I allowed? More importantly, can I give myself permission to do that? And when I give that buffer, will I allow myself to actually come down? Because we often do not. Two ways that you can go deeper into buffering. First one is one of my favorite books right now, Burn Bright, Not Out by James Oliver Jr. Appreciate you. It was good talking to you the other day. So I want to give you some congrats with a new book coming out. Fantastic book. James is an experienced entrepreneur. He actually founded the Parentpreneur Foundation, and I was part of the community for several years. You've heard me talk about it if you've been a long time listener and viewer of the show. He finally came out with his second book. His first book was several years ago. I have it somewhere on my shelf. But this book just literally just came out. As you can tell, I'm already starting to to dog ear everything. Fantastic book. It's a collection of stories from Brad Feld and David Cohen, who are well-known venture capitalists, to folks in the startup world, which again I can relate to a lot more. Shout out to all my VCs, as well as James's own story. Fantastic short stories, relatively short, about the same size as No Mud, No Lotus. So, nothing too out of the ordinary to read. And the nice part about it is that two things. First of all, they're first person stories. So if you're familiar with the VC community, who are the people that give investments to startups, you know who Brad Feld and David Cohen are, right? Part of Techstars and other groups, multi-million dollar exits, the whole thing. And they're talking about their own struggles, which I love. I love. With my first best-selling book, The Bite-Sized Entrepreneur, which is included in the compilation, The Complete Bring Your Reflection. Again, the link is below. That's what I was trying to do when the book came out, 10 years ago. Yeah, about 10 years ago now. That can normalize us going through what we're going through in the startup world, and that's part of the game. That's just part of the game. Doesn't mean there's anything wrong with you. If you're dealing with depression or stress or shame, excuse me, you're feeling guilt because you're not able to spend as much time with your family. You feel like a failure because your startup isn't working how you like it to, or a lot of people are leaning on you. That is part of the game. There's nothing wrong with you. That's just part of it. And going through this book, that's the energy of the book. You are not alone. Grab the book, particularly if you're in the startup arena and or you're having a tough time, even if it's not startup directly, but just having a tough time with the business that you're building up or that you're leading. Check out the book. Oh, 90% of the sales proceeds are going to the Kabila Mental Health Fund. Hope I got the name right. It's Mental Health Fund. And that's going towards giving free or low cost mental health support, including therapists and other things, to entrepreneurs in need. Just because you're an entrepreneur, that doesn't mean you got money. We can talk about that all day. And just because your company is worth 20, 30, $50 million, that doesn't mean you have the money to take care of yourself. Shout out to James. When you buy the book, 90% of the proceeds are going directly to support mental health of entrepreneurs. Shout out to James. You know I appreciate you. Love you. Fantastic book. Keep going. So that's the first recommendation as far as creating more buffer in your life, because we need to make space for mental health, buffering your life, as well as making the space you can actually get to a therapist, get to the doctor so you can get stuff checked out. For my folks that are middle aged and up, get your annual checkup, all those things. But you need to have a buffer in your life to do that. You can't be working 24/7. You can't be taking care of your family 24/7, and take care of yourself and create a buffer like you really need to. The second thing I recommend is actually right above my big head. And that is over here. Here we go. The Bankrate High Yield Savings Account Tracker. Just started working with them over the last few weeks. I love working with them. I love what they're doing. High yield savings accounts are basically savings accounts with traditional or even quote unquote alternative banks and credit unions. In other words, those that are only online but don't have a brick and mortar, physical office. The HYSAs, they call it, have a percentage that is could be 5 to 10% higher than the checking or particularly the savings that you have at your traditional bank or credit union. They're called HYSAs. One of the reasons I did the recent episode as far as getting your finances together this year is because that's been a journey that I've been on, particularly over the last 2 or 3 years, been locked in. And I'm starting to see the results of that, which I'm super thankful for. One of my biggest steps when I started to bring in more income and be more responsible with my spending was to get an HYSA. Because, like I talked about earlier in the episode, when we're independent, when we're entrepreneurs, we're freelancers, we're side hustlers, we tend to get big checks, and then the checks kind of sit there. Hopefully, they won't spend it too soon. The checks kind of sit there, and then we need them for bills. Again, there's been a couple years when I went in my career where I got one big check, and that check had to last me the whole year. Right? Luckily, I was single with no kids at the time, but that you got to make stuff stretch. So we have a tendency to get these big checks, and then we're slowly siphoning them off for our bills, taxes, 401k, hopefully, or whatever the equivalent is for retirement, all those things. We do all that stuff, and then the next check comes, and we go the cycle over again, right? Or maybe a smaller version of that. Your money's just sitting there. I want my money to be active. I want my money to make money. If I have 5 figures and it's sitting there, do I want to get 0.01% interest on it? No, no, I want the higher multiple. HYSAs do this. The first people I went to about HYSAs are my family and friends that have been involved with financial services. And I was like, yo, I heard about this. Da, da, da. So I want to make sure it was safe and all that stuff. The second thing I did is go to Bankrate. I swear. Before I even started working with them, I was like, yes, that's the place to go. Bankrate over here, QR code's right there. Right there? Not, man. The mirror is mirroring right there. And the link is right below my big head. What they do is you click on the link, it's completely free, zero, completely free, no obligation, just free. You click on it, and it'll give you a list of all of the HYSA offers right now with the interest rates, with where they're located, and those other kind of minute details, and also making sure that they're FDIC, or forget the credit union equivalent of it, but for banks, FDIC certified, which means that if something were to happen at the bank, some Great Depression level stuff, then your money is guaranteed up to currently $250,000. So if you got a quarter mil in there, you can go and get the interest rate, and if something happens, you're good to that quarter mil. Most of us probably have a lot less in there, right? But it's something to do that. I was excited to work with them because there's so many of us who have the big paychecks. They come in, and our money's just sitting there making 0.001% interest, and we're happy to get the penny after having our money in there for a year. I want y'all to do better than that. Also, too, they're a partner, so ain't going there for free. Again, I'm mirrored out today. Using the QR code. Oh my God, there it is. Holy moly, my finger is gone. If you use the QR code or the link below, then it actually helps support the channel, which I would appreciate. See me building into the community too and making your money. The reason I bring this up as far as having a buffer is I've had a HYSA for a little while now. Actually, I have a couple because you can have more than one where I keep my money. In having that, it creates a buffer in two different ways. The first way is that I'm literally making money as I sleep. I'm really into passive income. If you're new to the channel, I think I had whole years worth of episodes talking about passive income. Just do bringyourworth.tv, search for passive income. You'll find it. Whole series on passive income. So this is the kind of passive income that you literally don't have to do anything aside from get your HYSA. Again, use the QR code or the link below. The second thing that I get from it personally is buffering, because I know that I'm even more motivated to make more money, or at least have more profit. There's a difference to have more profit, but to also to take that money and to do that. So I have the traditional investments as far as stocks and other things, but this is a thing where that money is accessible. And that's probably the last thing I'd say about the HYSA is that it's completely accessible. You can transfer it. For my HYSAs, I can go and say, "Oh, I want to use that money," and it's in my traditional account within a day or two, depending on, of course, the platform and the service you decide on. A lot of the information's on there, and Bankrate is super reliable. Again, I've been using their services. All the services are free. At least all the ones I've used have been free. Been using their free services for maybe decades at this point. They have a long list of things, so they're a trusted resource. Click on the link. You can learn more about HYSAs. Go ahead and learn about the offers that they have as far as percentages. I'm not going to say any numbers because I'm not a CPA, and I also know that sometimes we watch reruns of this, so I don't want to talk out of turn because those numbers change. But those numbers are really good. I can safely say it's a multiple of what you're going to get from a traditional checking or savings place. And of course, you'd be supporting the channel by clicking on the link and learning about the offers, because then, of course, they are a partner with me. That gives you a buffer between taking your mental health seriously and realizing that getting more self-aware as far as how you're contributing or not contributing. Oh, we've all been there to your mental health. Again, shout out to James, as well as Django Degree. Shout out to the co-author. And working with Bankrate with the HYSA. Man, you know where I'm pointing. There we go. Man, the mirror is killing me today. You know where I'm pointing. Not pointing at myself. You can use the QR code in the other corner, QR code or the link below. That'll help support the channel as well as making sure that your money is working for you. Again, out of the 443 episodes, I probably have had like 100 episodes talking about freelancing, independence, entrepreneurship, side hustles, and money. I take this seriously. I'm not just going to have any old any old stuff that I'd be recommending. So be sure and check them out. And like I said, ad nauseum, you can also support the channel with that. So those are the different ways that we can go ahead and create some peace this year. Um, what does peace mean to you? Let us know in the comments. And as far as things we can do, we want to make sure we build room to rebuild. In other words, if you're going through transition or going through um, a tough time or heavy stuff, or even if you're about to go through a transition or want to go through a transition, build in that space so that you can be in that liminal area because that's part of the healing and also where you're gonna create um, a new normal for yourself. Consistency over perfection. Showing up every day regularly is worth it. I've been trying to exercise more and get to the gym. Of course, I have two boys, so they're wrestling me all the time. We're always play fighting, so I'm getting my workout. But in learning about people who are really good with gym culture and showing up regularly, just like me meditating and stuff like that, which that's already a part of my environment or my habits. They talk about it's better to go in and lift a few weights or whatever you're going to do, get on the Stairmaster and all that, and just do that for a few minutes regularly than to go there and be there for like 5 hours. Because the strength comes in the literally, in this case, physical strength comes in the regularity, not in the amount that you do. It comes in the frequency, not in the breadth of it. Better to show up for 5 minutes every day than to show up for an hour every week. I might be quoting somebody, but that's definitely the stuff I heard. So remember that. That helps us keep things peaceful. Change yourself to change the environment. If you don't like your environment, make sure that you're using 100% of your agency. And if that's not enough to change the environment, it might not be the environment for you. And lastly, create buffer in your life. You want to do that because otherwise, we'll end up stressing each other out and stressing ourselves out too. I'm entrepreneurial coach Damon Brown. You can watch Bring Your Worth TV Wednesdays at 1:11 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, Vegas time. Like I said, I'm an entrepreneurial coach. So if you want to coach with me, just go ahead and use the link at damonbrown.net. You can learn more about it. And maybe we can have what do you call a conversation. I can tell it's the end of the day, a long day for me. I was like, what's that called? We can have a 15-minute consultation to see if we'd be a good match. Yeah, if you like silly slash intense coaches that are help you get to the next level, I am your guy. So what you see is what you get from the channel. All right, it's so good hanging out with y'all. Don't forget to go and check out the HYSA as well, and you can use the QR code. Check it out to support the channel and learn more about how your money can work for you. Until next time, remember you can always bring your worth. You can always build from now. Take care of yourselves and others.